Great.
Thank you, Alaska and Corla. And I want to thank everybody who has contributed to the Labour Party proposal, the debate on a strategic investment bank. I want to say that we are not accepting the Sinn Féin amendment. The American writer who wrote recently in Rolling Stone, Matt Taibbi, talked about a bank in America. And he said, a great vampire squid wrapped around the face of humanity, relentlessly jamming its blood funnel into anything that smells like money. Now, he was talking about Goldman Sachs, but it seems to me he could have been talking about Fianna Fáil's own Anglo-Irish bank, and indeed, on a minor scale, he could have been talking about Irish Nationwide. And really, in a way, that is where, if you like, the need for a strategic investment bank comes from. And I think that that's something that Fianna Fáil doesn't really understand. But I do note the half praise from the Minister and from other Fianna Fáil speakers, and perhaps that reflects Fianna Fáil's history a long time ago. Because the Labour Party motion, in proposing the establishment of a strategic investment bank, is doing so to address two critical market failures. And in capitalism, can I tell the Minister, because he's the capitalist, you are allowed to have a state initiative to address clear market failures. Capitalists agree on that. Socialists accept it, of course, as a given, because socialists don't hold the market as the god that Fianna Fáil holds it as, or at least that they do nowadays. The two market failures, the shortage of SME financing and the critical shortfall of investment in infrastructure in the future. Now, listening to a number of Fianna Fáil contributors this evening and last night, it's clear to me that some of them obviously have never heard of Sean Lemass, never mind have any knowledge of some of the initiatives he took, particularly during the war, when the Second World War, when market failure, absolutely was a critical feature of native Irish capital. That was a key reason for market failure then, and there was a whole series of initiatives taken then, not just by Fianna Fáil in government, but by others in government to address those market failures. In our proposal for a strategic investment bank, we propose an initial upfront investment of €2 billion from the National Pension Fund into a new vehicle which will raise funds to channel into Ireland's SME sector and into financing vital infrastructure. The Minister asked, and I think it's a reasonable question, why a new vehicle when the National Pension Reserve Fund is there already? The reason is, Minister, that you have given an extraordinary set of responsibilities in relation to the banking crisis to the NTMA. And as my colleague, Deputy Jan O'Sullivan said, we want not simply to concentrate on sorting out the mess and disaster that Fianna Fáil have created in the banks, but we also want to concentrate on the future. And that's why we do think that we need an institution that will focus on investment in small and medium enterprises and on investment for innovation purposes and investment in public infrastructure. Rather than pumping money into a failed banking system, we want some of the National Pension Reserve Fund, as Michael D has said, ring-fenced for productive, job-creating investment for the future. The Strategic Investment Bank would be both a commercially driven business bank and a public project financing powerhouse. It can be a key driver of green energy, microfinance and next-generation broadband. Has this been tried before anywhere else? Yes, in the recent UK budget, the British Chancellor for the Exchequer, Alistair Darling, proposed the establishment of a green investment bank to support investment in the eco-innovation and environmental sector. France last year launched its own strategic investment fund, tasked with taking long-term minority stakes in French companies with a view to catalysing further private sector co-financing. And as several of your Fianna Fáil colleagues remarked earlier tonight, the Labour proposal is modelled on the highly successful German KfW bank based in Germany, and that was established as part of the Marshall Plan. KfW has played a leading role in supporting investment and development in Germany. Minister, you criticised KfW because it was established after the war to help Germany out of a post-war situation. But our economy has just suffered a war from the banks. And we actually need, like Germany after the war, to actually create new institutions which bring hope to our people and future development. Attlee after the war and the British Labour Party after the war went into government when that country was in ruins. They built the National Health Service and they built universal free secondary and primary education. Of course, countries which face great challenges can decide to move on, but they require leadership. And I'm afraid that the leadership that Cowan Economics has given to this country is sadly lacking in any vision for the future. And that is what the Labour Party proposal is about. It's about building this country up again and using our resources, our energy and our talents. Over the past 2 years, the Labour Party has consistently called for investment and job creation to be put at the top of the agenda, but our government can't seem to get past bailing out Anglo-Irish and Irish nationwide. Fianna Fáil's ad hoc response to the crisis in Irish banking has been characterised by a string of broken promises. We were told that the bank guarantee would be the cheapest bank rescue in the world. This has turned out to be a disastrously bad call, and it has led to a seemingly endless series of bailouts and creeping nationalisation. So far, we have seen no upside, Minister, in the real economy. The credit famine continues. People continue to lose their jobs in record numbers, and either they go on the unemployment rolls or they emigrate. That's the reality of where we are living in Ireland now. They have seen their hard-earned pension pots go up in smoke. Businesses are going to the wall because of lack of credit and a lack of demand from hard-pressed consumers. Most of all, we are blighted by soaring youth unemployment, particularly young men losing their jobs in the construction sector. In just 2 short years, unemployment among under 25s has more than doubled, from 28,700 to 66,800, 2/3 of these being young men. This cohort makes up 1 in 5 people on the dole. When the world-renowned economist Danny Blanchflower spoke at the Dublin Economic Workshop some months ago, he talked about the devastating long-term effects that persistent youth unemployment can cause in society and for the economy. And if the Minister, I know he's an opera buff, but if he ever watched soaps, but you told me classical music then, sorry, I apologise. Sorry, I was having a David McWilliams moment. I apologise. But if you ever watch any popular television, and you see the series that are based on areas where young men are unemployed, whether it's The Wire in Baltimore or whether you go back to The Boys from the Black Stuff, and you see the effect of long-term male unemployment, Minister, it scars young men, not just for a few years, but for decades. And Professor Blanchflower is the world authority and was a member of the Bank of England Monetary Committee. He's a respected international economist, and that's what he said when he came to Dublin. You can't afford to have all these young men semi-permanently unemployed with nothing to do and nothing to look forward to except a few bob a week on the dole. That's not, if you like, a career-enhancing, life-enhancing path. Cowan Economics seems to be all about dishing out pain to individuals and families. Fianna Fáil has destroyed the economy. Labour's Strategic Investment Bank will help to put people back to work before it is too late. Everyone knows that tough medicine is needed to close Fianna Fáil's fiscal deficit, but we also need to give people hope by investing in our future, and that's what Labour's Strategic Investment Bank is all about. I have to say, Minister, in order to keep my sanity in relation to the deluge of bad news that Fianna Fáil brings every other week to this chamber and to the country about the banks, I make a positive point of going to visit multinational companies and innovative Irish companies and spend time with them to talk about what actually works. Recently, I've had an opportunity to talk with companies like IBM, with Microsoft, with Craig Barrett, attending his lecture in Dublin in relation to innovation and employment growth in Ireland. And all of these companies have one thing in common. They are not credit starved because they can borrow on the international credit markets. They're not dependent on our frozen Irish banks. That's why Paul Krugman, writing in March, talked about how Ireland should not become an example for the United States. And I mean, I know the Little Fianna Fáil book has loads of quotes about people who say you're all wonderful. But the point is, both Paul Krugman and Simon Jenkins, the former senior economist for the World Bank, have both pointed out that the difficulty with Ireland's remedies is that while it may be rescuing the banks, it's driving the rest of the country down. And that is what the Labour Party motion is trying to address tonight. Craig Barrett, in his lecture in the Mansion House a couple of months ago, spoke about how, despite the talents and the skills of young Irish people, particularly well-qualified engineers in IT and well-qualified people in science, in the United States, those people are the people, and in India, who have the start-ups in terms of new business and innovation. Our Strategic Investment Bank would not simply concentrate on public investment in needed infrastructure, but it would also concentrate on the gap that really, that people like Craig Barrett, who know a thing or two about this, have identified as a key gap that we have as compared with other economies which have a lot of bright young people, like India, who are devoted to education, but where they are providing for start-ups, we, because of what is happening with the banks and the obsession of the government with the banks, we don't have the money to devote to that. And the Labour Party proposal is to provide key funds for innovative start-ups to put us back in the game, not just via multinationals, but via Irish homegrown small and medium enterprises. And we have built up, over the last 20 years, we have built up, mainly through our third-level colleges, considerable experience in how to do that. But what we need for that, Minister, is the funding and is the capital for those start-ups.
1 minute.
Yes, at the Microsoft presentation the other day, and your own Taoiseach was present at that. The key thing that many of the young innovators, young scientists, young engineers, young IT people who were there, the key thing they said to me is we can build the jobs if we can get the capital. Now, all I can say is that if Fianna Fáil took for as long as they are in government, some of the Labour Party ideas, there might be a chance that you could return some hope to the country, instead to go back to what, as I said, Matt Taibbi, the American writer, said. Instead, you seem exclusively concentrating on the great vampire squid that is sucking the lifeblood out of this economy, and that's our failed banks in Anglo-Irish and in Irish nationwide.